it was criminalized and dismissed and then forgotten. Now, half a century later, the story is changing. Today, many universities and colleges are now showing that psychedelics, under the right medical guidance, can actually help people heal from things like alcoholism, nicotine dependence, and deep depression. Not by numbing the pain, no, but actually by helping them see it differently. And yet, as we've been saying, Africa has always known this truth for a longer time. Cameroon, Gabon, Ghana, Munom, Zimbabwe, actually, plant medicines have been a bridge between the seen and the unseen. If you go into Cameroon, Gabon, Ghana, where they have the Iboga root and the Uiti tradition, where they have sacred mushrooms, they've used ancient rituals to connect us with our ancestors and also helped in reconnection as part of the healing. They called it deliverance. Science is now calling it rewiring. Different words, but it's still the same search of peace of mind. Now, when we talk about addiction, what is addiction? Well, we've been learning over the last few years, we've been doing show that addiction isn't just a bad habit. It's the brain's reward system that's gone off key. Inside your brain, there are chemicals like dopamine, serotonin that teach us to say, do it again, do it again, do it again. And this is how that pleasure becomes prison. And the more we chase a feeling, the further we drift away from ourselves. But the same brain that learns can also unlearn. This is also what we've been learning on Detox. And this is where psychedelics enter the story, quietening the noise, loosening the rigid thought patterns. They also reconnect the parts of our trauma, our pain, or shame once silent. So we've been trying to understand, when we look into our context as a country, can a medicine like psychedelics that has been feared in some parts of the world become key to our recovery? Mushroom that grows in our soil, roots, Iboga roots, can it also become a doorway to you finding yourself? Now, today we are supposed to be in conversation with Gatia. He's a healer and a psychologist from Cameroon, a man who also stands, interestingly, where tradition meets science. He uses Iboga, the sacred plant, to help those fighting addiction find peace again. But first, we are still playing the recording from America, where researchers are exploring how this mushroom-assisted therapy actually works. If you remember last week, we were hearing the experiences of veterans, and we're going to continue through that experience before we talk to our guests. Daka Varpano, TK is also here, and also we're going to be talking to Ngati on the phone and here say, and how has Cameroon figured out how to bring traditional medicine like psychedelics right along Western philosophy. And as a country, as we are rolling out our multi-sectoral drug master plan, how might we be able to weave indigenous knowledge systems into healing and recovery? Because as you might have figured now, recovery is not just about removing the substance, it's also about restoring, it's also about connection. So first of all, courtesy of 60 Minutes in America, let's continue following the journey of 4 veterans who are battling with PTSD, having been to war, who are unsettled and unwell, suicidal, one of them, the other anxious, one has lost his family. But there is more to the story. Take a listen.
The retreat was organized and paid for by the Heroic Hearts Project, a nonprofit that's helped more than 1,000 U.S. veterans with combat-related PTSD access psychedelics.
All right.
I came home super angry, super anxious, hypervigilant. You know, that led to a pretty nasty divorce.
Ed Glover was in Afghanistan with the Marines. He's been a firefighter for 22 years.
I feel like 1 or 2 traumatic events you may be able to recover from, but kind of seeing it day in, day out really takes its toll.
As the vets talked, it became clear some of their struggles began long before they joined the military.
My family life was just always this constant conflict.
Navy vet Michael Giardina had an emotionally abusive father who killed himself 16 years ago. His sister died by suicide 5 months before he came here.
My daughter asked my ex-wife if I was going to kill myself, and I'm not. I just want to get better.
To qualify for this retreat, they had to work with their doctors to wean off any antidepressant or anxiety medication they might be taking because of how it could interact with the psychedelics. They also had to have a medical screening and no family history of psychosis or schizophrenia. When we were there, a local doctor was on site, but no mental health professionals.
I appreciate you guys for putting the faith in me, the faith in us coming here.
Jesse Gould, a former Army Ranger, founded the Heroic Hearts Project in 2017 after he tried another psychedelic, ayahuasca, at a retreat in Peru. Gould says psychedelics can help veterans revisit traumatic moments in ways they may be unable to with other therapies.
The value, what we're finding with psychedelics is it's a very individualistic journey. You know, if it comes at you, it brings up the emotions, it heightens your senses, and so you're having to face it. And so that's why you see such big revelations, because it's giving you the tools to actually get there.
Do you worry that some who see this as sort of the last hope may end up disappointed?
I worry that we're at the situation where people are having to go to other countries for their last hope. That indicates a major flaw in the system. The orange one?
Okay.
Heroic Hearts hired traditional healers to conduct 3 psychedelic ceremonies. The first 2 with psilocybin, a psychoactive compound found in some mushrooms. It's been used as medicine by indigenous communities in Mexico and elsewhere for centuries.
You don't need to be strong. All we need for this experience and to receive the healing is humbleness.
The healers stirred ground-up mushrooms into a tea. The vets drank it, put on blindfolds to shut out distractions, and lay down. At first, it seemed like the group might have traveled thousands of miles for a midday nap.
And
Then, about an hour in, we saw Michael Giardina raise his hand for help. His foot soon started to shake, followed by his whole body. By hour 3, it was clear the psilocybin had kicked in. Randy Weaver and TJ Duff barely seemed to move, while firefighter Ed Glover appeared caught between rapture and deep sorrow.
When you let go of me, the truth will all be so simple and clear.
5 hours later, when the psilocybin began to wear off, the vets removed their eye masks and found the heat of the afternoon sun. The next day, the group gathered to discuss what they'd gone through.
It literally felt like an exorcism. My foot was going crazy, and I could kind of feel like my body was convulsing.
I felt like I was taking every last breath of any victim, patient, or friend that I had lost. So I really struggled to breathe yesterday.
I've never done anything like that before.
Randy Weaver appeared to find some of what he traveled all this way for.
One thing that I remember very vividly.
It's 10:30.
Was flying back with the guy set that we lost. Like being on that medevac, even though I wasn't there in the real world, I was there spiritually with them.
TJ Duff, however, found it unsettling and at times scary.
I've heard a lot of your guys' stories, and I did not get as immersive as you guys did. I'm kind of glad I didn't, honestly, because I was kind of afraid of that. But
That night, Duff took part in another psilocybin ceremony, but the next day he left. He later told us the whole experience caused a dangerous decline in his mental health. He's now back on antidepressant medication. The last ceremony of the retreat was with 5-MeO-DMT, a powerful and fast-acting psychedelic secreted from a toad. After returning home, the vets had several virtual meetings with a Heroic Hearts Project counselor.
I think my biggest takeaway was making sure I make the time to take care of myself.
The Veterans Administration warns against self-medicating with psychedelics or using them as part of a self-treatment program. But in December, when we spoke to its top doctor, Sharif El-Mahal, he was enthusiastic about their potential.
Do these retreats concern you? They can concern me because there's no way to monitor, certify,
make sure that they're actually safe environments. They're seeking these therapies because they do not see our current options for them to be effective enough, and they're in a state of desperation. And that in and of itself, them seeking this type of unauthorized therapy, is just another indication on why we need to study this further and get it to a safe and effective medical environment.
In August, the FDA rejected a pharmaceutical company's application to use the psychedelic MDMA in combination with therapy as a treatment for PTSD, after an FDA advisory panel said there wasn't enough evidence it was safe or effective. The VA is now conducting 9 clinical trials using MDMA and psilocybin to treat PTSD, depression, and addiction. Dr. Elnahal told us a small phase 2 trial by the VA using MDMA and therapy to treat PTSD, completed last year, showed real promise.
45% have gone into complete remission, which is essentially a normal emotional state. That is unheard of with prolonged exposure, cognitive processing, and certainly SSRIs. The current standard of care options.
Almost half of the people who came in with PTSD and did MDMA therapy at the VA were cured?
Yes.
So you have no doubt that this works?
We need to do larger phase 3 clinical trials. That's the best way scientifically to understand what the true adverse events are and whether we can reproduce these results in larger populations of veterans. I'm very optimistic we will be able to demonstrate that.
How long do you think it will be before veterans can go to the VA and get this therapy?
It could be another couple of years. The incoming administration is going to take, pretty bold stance on this.
So there you have it. We took a short journey into the experiences of war veterans. It's so interesting to see how their experiences are different from the other. One sat through it. One was in and out. One was scared. One got each time more guys and skutambira ikoko ndokuti tant akananga kumshakwa angaba, and he's back on antidepressants. We're talking this morning about psychedelics, particularly the psilocybin, which is a mushroom, which helps your brain create new connections to help you quieten the noise and perhaps to re-find yourselves. And joining us this morning is, of course, our usual voices who deal day to day with stories around addiction. Daka, coming from Batala Pamwe Sober Living Space. He is head of programs there. He's a qualified social worker. Daka Makadi.
Good morning, Polaki. Good morning to all our listeners.
And he brought with him a very pretty young lady. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning. My name is Charmaine. I'm a junior social worker.
Shami. And lastly, but no least, we have got T.
Hey.
How are you, TK?
I'm all right.
And TK is a psychologist. He also has experience having taken different substances himself, but also working with other recoveries.
Yes, definitely.
So I will start with TK. What is your feeling and your experience seeing how these veterans were battling with addiction, with post-traumatic disorder, waenda kuhondo, hawasikuwa na hope mwaka ona shamwari yake ichifa, and he's never recovered from that. One was a fireman as well. And then they go through this therapy and they all seem to react or respond differently to this experience.
Yes, thank you for that. My thoughts and feelings about this are kind of mixed. I've got mixed feelings towards this. The first feeling is as a psychologist, I think it's an interesting topic to look into. There's no absolute way to deal with recovery, with addiction recovery or post-traumatic stress. So we have to see what other options are available out there. I think it's clearly evident in how the different people were reacting to the different doses. Uma went through with it. So yeah, as a psychologist, I would like to say it has to be investigated more. If possible, it has to be included in our therapy systems. But then there's the mixed feeling of me as a recovering addict also. I'm torn in between. As a recovering addict, I think it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous because there's a risk re-traumatization also. Which psychedelics are not considered to reliving that trauma. During that trip, you might know about recovery through my psycho. As you see, I'm weaned off my psychotrops out. Ndabviswa pamapiritsai ndoita musilosybin kutaurwa ndobva ndatadza kubuda musilosybin. As a recovering addict, I think that's very dangerous, and I wouldn't want to try that, to be honest.
I hear you. So here's a question to you, TK, because you also work in rehabilitation, and you anchor your approach through naturopath. In other words, using natural systems to try and help somebody rewire the brain and flash out whatever is in their system, right? Which is leading to the addiction.
Yes.
How do you heal something that's rooted in the mind and the spirit?
Yes.
Using natural systems.
I mean, yes. Again, I'm talking as the psychologist now.
Yes, yes.
It all comes down to, we use cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's an issue here, like by my psychedelics, there's neuroplasticity. The substances which are taken create different neural pathways that start transmitting different neurotransmitter at different signals due to the use of my substances and drugs. And so these neural pathways, road it built through learning, through which means secretion chemicals at a standard rate. So the use of substances manipulate a secretion of these chemicals and creates new neural pathways which you start operating by. It's a whole biochemistry, to be honest. It's a whole biochemistry. After that, the use of my natural pathways is kutovhura nzira futi one, or rather kuvhura nzira inodzokera kwaya kwatakatangira kwaya. Tichida kuvhara iyi yawangu wavhura wega. So yeah, it's a theory of neuroplasticity. It's about opening the new neural pathways that promote Jaganak.
You raised some very important points there about, from what we also heard from the Wolvits, Daka and Charmaine, is how the responses to their trauma, what the psychedelic is doing, it's opening them up to their experiences. Some went through it, some could not go through it.
Yes.
We also heard in that recording that there was no mental health profession. It was just the traditional healer who is familiar with the psychedelic. But just from listening this during this session, the hours, who do you think becomes the best candidate for training, for this training?
All right, thank you for that. I think all mental health practitioners are ideal candidates for this particular training, because mostly we intervene from a point of dysfunction, but there is a general resistance to treatment, especially when it comes to mental health disorders, which is the reason why these veterans then sought other alternatives, because they were resisting other conventional ways of treatment. So basically, these psychedelic treatment or interventions, they facilitate fear extinction. In most cases, people cannot progress with that treatment because of that fear of re-traumatization, which TK highlighted. Then again, there is this sense of emotional challenge of expressing their, or trying to reprocess their feelings. So with the psychedelics, they facilitate fear suppression or fear extinction. They facilitate general openness. And closeness of to engage in this therapy. So it's just this general closeness which is induced through the oxytocin hormones which are secreted within the body, thereby facilitating a very therapeutic environment in which one can open up about their feelings and can process them better, unlike the traditional ways or the conventional therapies. So in that regard, if we have the mental health practitioners who can be trained to facilitate these psychedelic assisted treatment, then it means the therapeutic outcomes can be enhanced better.
Yeah. I'm also wondering in terms of dosage, how that we be determined. We're supposed to be able to connect with our shaman, but I think we're going to run into some challenges. I'm going to keep trying so that they can but I'm thinking in terms of even dosage. Murumanyama chaiwo kana tsangamidzi ina dosage kutsenga unongodimburirwa vanoti ikakatokwana hakana dosage, and in most cases they're not wrong, it'll give you the results, to be fair. Iyo unenge wapuwa iyo iyi. Would that approach work? Do you think it should be based on looking even at these war vets? Is it their trauma, the level of their trauma that they're experiencing? Is it their psychological readiness? I wonder.
Yeah, I also wonder too, because anything within the lines of medicine needs to be regulated. There should be some form of dosages. I'm sure those shaman or traditional healers, from their experience, like all dosages, they are driven from experience, because you cannot just wake up one day and say, okay, so 5 mg will be enough. Unotanga watomboita ma experiments uchiona kuti 5 mg inenge yawandisa ngatimboreduce. Saka it's all based on experience. But I wonder if they have documented kuti izvi zvindo the right dosages.
But I think that's why it's difficult for treatment of psychedelics to come into the mainframe, because there's no scientific quantification of how to administer it.
But the definition of the word scientific is relative, is it not? Because science simply means,
That's not facts.
It's based on facts.
Practice.
Practice. It's absolute. Science is absolute. Science is absolute, if I can say that.
Is it?
I'd like to think it's absolute.
Is it? Because Jatajaira Kwatiri is science.
Yeah.
I don't want to put the word African science because it then makes it seem as if African science is different from Western science. But science is simply practice things that we know in simple English.
In simple English.
Isi kana tajaira kuzoti unokwesha mazino nemudzi, for example, it is our science.
It's African science.
But it is our science.
Science is not used to ukakwesha mazino ne Colgate. Because Colgate in a fluoride, they're known to protect the enamel and stuff like that. But science has not used how to meet the say.
And I think I beg to differ, because manambuya edu nana sekuru de I say nganga dzinoziva kuti mudzi inoshanda sei. COVID showed us this when we battled with chidzigwa mpengo. We all knew that Zumbani works. We knew this. That's our science. And actually there's much higher antioxidant properties, for example, than rooibos. But it's just this we knew it works. So how do we integrate those two lines? I'm so sad that we can't connect with the shaman, because it would have been really great to interrogate him further and understand how we as a country can make that work. Clearly our traditionalists know something. If this has been working for 3,000 years, they know something.
Yeah, take it with a pinch of salt.
They do know. The clear distinction here is the underlying mechanisms, which are then explained through science, the science that we have learned from school. Whereas with indigenous knowledge systems, like you highlighted, is through practice. They know it works. They might not be able to explain that components so these are the bioactive ingredients which interact with so producing my neural pathways. They might not know all these elements. But if you take this substance, the results are likely to be here.
Yeah. So what's also interesting is how a country like Cameroon has actually approached the integration of their indigenous knowledge system into their mainstream medicine. So they actually, as a country, created a platform having recognized and they said, okay, how do we integrate that knowledge system into a space where someone like Gantia, who we wanted to speak to, who is like TK, a Western qualified health professional, but he's a traditional healer. Kind of like Veronica, actually, and I've been meaning to ask Veronica about that. Traditional healer, say, as a psychologist, how does that work? And that bridge might be something that we're missing, more important into us talking about unemployment, about trauma, about all these other important elements in this discussion that are running away from what we already know as Africans. Am I making any sense at all right now?
Yeah.
So Veronica has also just sent in some audio notes because we were also checking with her, as somebody who took these mushrooms, how did the family support come around? How do you explain this? Bas.
Well, I don't think you have to be particular on the mode of treatment. Ukangotaura kubasa kuti ndamboitawo zikoshero zveutano hwepfungwa ndoda kunobatsirikana, they should be able to understand that. Because ukada kuzodzika nemamodalities kuti ndichazonoshandisirwa CPT, ndichashandisirwa mhodzi, ndoita sei, I think it will further complicate things. Chero chizotsanangura HR kwakutomuvhiringidza.
And your family, how would your family be integrated in this process?
Well, I think let's take you back to what Louis also informed us. I told Anya, with the plant-based medicine, it connects you with your natural identity, connects you with your ancestral lineage. So I would like to believe, Kote, the family should be equally involved, because there is some form of history about you, about the family that you might not know, and they might be able to answer during the sessions, in any case.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a listen to what Veronica had to say in terms of how her family got involved in the use of psychedelics. But so this is interesting. So the government of Cameroon has put in place, as I explained to you, a strategic platform, right, where they say, let's explore the practice and development of our traditional medicine, so that there is some sort of synergy and harmony between the medicine that our people practice, but also between the modern medicine, antibiotics, and they said, okay, how do we institutionalize this alignment of our medicine? Like TK is highlighting, how do we then research our traditional medicine? But let's have a space. Let's create schools and pharmacy in our state university where we actually say, Vana Iboga, Vana Zumbani, Vana Tsangamidzi, Makati Huawei Unoi, Daka.
We are supposed to be treatment out which it's actually poisonous.
Right. Fair enough. I see, of all our Jesus, I think I funga zvachinozi kuti isusu kwedu tinohidla dota kana une chingurira nizi makambozviita here. All those things that we practice traditionally, Cameroon has says, okay, let's create spaces in our schools, in our pharmacies, where we focus just on the development of these innovations and improve our traditional medicine. So imagine uchitopinda magrosa kuti ndiri kuda madota hapana nokuseka chine chitori muchibhotoro chakagezwa chakanaka chakari dota rinobetsera chiungurira. If this is what we as a country agree to say, this is our traditional medicine, let's institutionalize it, let's structure it. I guess this is what TK is calling for. Let's structure it, but tisazoshora vanhu vanoshandisa mishonga yedu yatohwisisa. I hate to say this term, but vanofanira kuti mishonga yedu yechivanhu in a place where in this context we're talking about rehabilitation might actually work. 0719-100-404. It's sad that we can't get a hold of Ngatia, who is in Cameroon. Iye pachake unotwa mnakenda chikoro che chirungu icho chichu. He is qualified as a health specialist and an addiction specialist as well. But he's also a traditional healer. No shandisa jirambire dzose dzodzidzi, and he's a shaman. Atakadzidzwa na Louis, atakadzidzwa she na Veronica. So he is an addiction specialist, is a psychologist, is a health and safety environment officer, and he uses traditional plant medicine with professional therapeutic practice. In this Muti tradition where this plant is found, we understand that he comes from a lineage of healers. Okay. His father actually was called to be an Iboga healer. So he uses spiritual insights, clinical understanding, all into one. Spiritual insights, clinical understanding into one.
Yeah, it's I have an example. I have an example. The one patient, suffering from addiction, but addiction again, anxiety psychosis again related to a spiritual, I can say, misunderstanding. But then how? Like I said before, there's no absolute way of dealing with addiction or therapy. You have to be dynamic about your approaches. At that time, not do but traditional healer. And to my surprise, it worked. Stable after the visit from our very own local shamans, if I can say that. And it actually worked to the therapy of that specific individual.
Okay. I'm particularly interested to know, is there anything which I administered na shaman?
No, there's nothing that was administered.
Nothing was administered.
So
something was administered. Something was administered. And background was the person affiliated or angari belief system in terms of
belief system he was obviously traditional, and the family was full. Obviously the family was alerted to those and they were on board with the whole treatment.
Okay, so just imagine dai makatry kuforsa client yenyu ichikudzwa kuti ndizvo andiri kubhelieva, then murongotaura kuti aiwa apa paruda CBT, apa paruda mapiritsi, paruda respiratory. How likely were you going to get outcomes? Akaita say almost instantly the shaman.
But you know what's so interesting? I hope we'll have time to play Veronica's audio notes. We have a show that we do on Thursdays called Vanish that profiles missing people cases. And in all the cases, with no exception, where there is a child that goes missing and then there is suspected psychotic or induced hallucinatory behavior, or we assume it's hallucinating, it manifested in some sort of spiritual awareness, awakening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Connected to substances that they were taking. So they may take substances, but the manifestation.
But that's a common thing with use of substance. It promotes hyper-religiosity. But
why do we doubt that? Why is that
the phenomena
not making sense to us?
The phenomena cannot be. Why cannot it manifest in this take substances?
Is it about washuta, or we are saying, until if we go back to your science, we're saying something is happening to your brain.
Yes.
Right? Either with substances, the release of the dopamine. In this context, we're talking about psychedelics that are rewiring your brain patterns.
Yes.
So between the fine line of substances doing the same thing and psychedelics doing the same thing, there's still some it's, to me, in my limited knowledge, like there is a brief moment of that opening of awareness depending on what you are using and where it will take you.
Yes.
Did I make any sense there?
Yeah, you are making sense. Don't go pause right patient to bring Charmaine to the discussion. An example of a client that akambosanga naye. You encounter a client auya kwauri. Urushaura naye runyatsonzwa kuti munhu uyu anenge ari mu state of psychosis. But otanga kukutsanangura something that you can actually connect to. Okuudzwa kuti handinoita matest enyu ninge chitry kuda kutsvaga kuti munhu ari mu psychosis or not. Ndimubvunza kuti unomboona kana kunzwa zvasingaoni. Okudza kuti yes, I do. Then you obviously, according to the mental health screening, wafana kuisa an indication whether this person is in psychosis. But then over also kuudza kuti ndinotoona inini zvafana newewo handiuna mbuya vakazodai so vasiri kuwanikwa vakarasika kukadai. How would you react as a social worker?
To be honest, I think you would be moved because zvanenge achitotaura it's real, but also uchitarisa nekuti munhu ari kutora ma-substances, saka is likely to be in psychosis because munhu ari kutora ma-substances and then over kuudza saka
sakari kusona zviri accurate ari psychosis munhu
psychosis akuudza zveupenyu hwako iwe kuti wakamboti ari psychosis asi psychosis. I know you obviously you are tend to be moved to the notion yekuti anotoona.
So what is that telling us about addiction and substances and that part of our brain? What is that telling us?
I think vanhu vanogara vachitaura in the street lingos kuti madrugs anoendesa munhu mudenga rechinomwe handete, meaning kuti mukushandisa kunenge uchita munhu ma-substances ane mamwe ma-pathways anovhura mubrain anoita kuti uconnecte with the spiritual world. It might not make sense panguva iyoyo kuti zvichokaniye kuti atora madrugs, because after administration of madrugs munhu anodzokera ta normal, but pane ka-facilitation kaitswa. It might not be in the healthier way, but pane ka-facilitation kaitwa. Scientifically we cannot prove it, but facilitation inenge iri clear. Since munhu akuudza something that you can actually relate and connect, it can't be a coincidence.
I don't think it's that we can't even prove it, because when you think even in terms of artists and musicians, a lot of them, let me use a very basic example, reggae, or painters, majority of them will attest to the fact that when they take, say, marijuana, something happens to their creativity. And I don't know if you're listening to this, perhaps you also have your own vice that you take when you are about to do something that might be unsettling or that might need an extra something. And somehow it channels you.
It does. Because on the thing I example, you pano some neural pathways.
Yes.
Correct. Ashanda in terms of creativity. But the channel you have, and as much as the results are positive, it's still not healthy, because
I'm with you. My issue is not even there. My issue is the reality that there's something that's happening in our brain that even for a small moment is opening us to another dimension that may result in and all these cases that we've seen where somebody becomes extra spiritual. I'm saying, is it possible that for that brief moment, whatever it is that we're taking, whether it's a psychedelic, whether it is a substance, there is a chemical reaction that's happening in the brain that's opening us up, even for a brief moment, to another realm?
It's possible. I've experienced that.
It's possible, right?
I've experienced that.
Right?
Enough the times. It's possible.
It's
as much as you'd like to rationalize it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Hold that thought process. Let's go to the news, and we're going to respond. The listener is also responding. It's 11 o'clock.